So welcome and thank you. I'm sure there'll be more of you joining us as we go through, but I want to welcome you from across Canada and around the world. We have many of you joining us from different countries. For you who are seeing me for the first time, my name is Tina and I will be your host. In this special hour, you're going to hear from our heads of programs on CUSO International and how we are building a fair, sustainable, and safer world for women and girls. And before we begin, I would like to honor and acknowledge the contributions First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples have made in shaping Canada. I'm speaking to you from the traditional territory of Toronto, and it is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Chippewa, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 of the Mississaugas of the Credit, and we are grateful and respectful to be able to live and work on this land. We know that land acknowledgements are a small step, but an important one towards reconciliation, and they allow us the opportunity to reflect and stand in solidarity with Indigenous people. So thank you. For those of you who are new to the CUSO community, we are a Canadian international development organization committed to ending poverty and inequality. We work with local partners around the world to improve economic opportunities and support and empower women and girls. And we do this all by sharing skills, and we mobilize hundreds of Canadians and worldwide professionals who volunteer their time and knowledge to help build sustainable futures. So you'll hear more about our organization and our programming. But today we're here to help raise the voices of young women and girls by sharing their stories. You'll hear stories of Jamaica and stories of Honduras, Tanzania, as well as Ethiopia. You'll also learn of the investment that CUSO is making in the next generation of young leaders. So we are off the ends of International Day of the Girl that was on October 11th. And coming up, we have World Anti-Poverty Day. That is on October 17th. And for CUSO, these really go beyond international days to be recognized as one-offs. For us, it's an ongoing conversation every day and for the past 60 years. Together with you and our partners, we continue to build a world free of poverty and inequality. And to help us build this world, we have with us today, let me introduce Tanya Shepard. She is our head of programs for Latin America and the Caribbean. Tanya has worked in international development in the sector for the past 20 years. She has direct experience working in Bolivia, Brazil, and Chile, with a specific focus working in community-based development, women's rights and participation, and youth economic empowerment. She has strong project design and management experience overseeing the implementation of large bilateral projects in Latin America and the Caribbean, and they are financed by Global Affairs Canada, the European Union, and the World Food Programme. So I don't think this is welcome, Tanya, but this is a welcome back. We've been here before and glad to have you again. We also have Anna Squire, who will be joining us. She is our heads of programs from Africa. Anna has over 15 years of experience in the field of civil society engagement in progressively responsible management positions. She holds a master's in the field of human security and peace building and is focused on development and social cohesion initiatives in vulnerable conflict and post-conflict scenarios to promote durable peace. Anna has recently joined CUSO as our head of programs for Africa, yay, and she resides in Kenya, but she's joining us today from Ethiopia. So welcome, and I'm sure this will be your first of many, Anna, but thank you for being here for this hour. A little bit of housekeeping so that things run as smoothly as possible. For those of you who are using a computer, please feel free to ask questions. You'll see a Q&A box on your screen, and that's if you would like us to answer your questions, where you should be putting them. We love your engagement, and that is one way for you to stay engaged with us. I would also like to ask the audience, if possible, to stay to the very end because I do have a special announcement to make. So yeah, you have to hold off to hear what that is. And now what I would like to do is engage you with a poll. What are a poll, you may ask? Let me launch one right now so that you can partake. So on your screen, you should be seeing a poll that reads, what is the most important area of gender equality you believe that CUSO International should be working towards? And I invite you to answer that now, and I'll share the results momentarily. So I'll give you just about, 10 seconds. 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 I know there's a lot of you. I apologize. We just have a lot of material. I'm going to end the poll and I'm going to share the results. And the majority of you feel that all the areas that you're going to hear much more about today are important to you. So advancing reproductive health of women and girls, providing access to education, supporting employability are all themes and areas that we should be working in and that we are working in. So thank you for participating. You'll get more to polls a little bit later. What I would like to do now is dive right in. And what I would like to do is actually stop the presentation because we'll have Anna and Tanya discuss with us some contextual foundation. And maybe we'll start with Tanya. In Latin America and the Caribbean, what are our partners telling us about like the current context coming off COVID-19 and the impact that we're having on young women and girls in both Jamaica and Honduras? So Tanya, you have the floor.
Great. Thank you, Tina. It's great to be back at another town hall, and it's a pleasure to see everybody again. And for anybody new who's joining us for a town hall, I have the opportunity today to talk a little bit about our work in Jamaica as well as Honduras. So I'll start with just a little bit of the country context today, also considering the impact of COVID-19. So I'm going to start with Jamaica. Just to note that CUSO has been working in Jamaica for almost 60 years. So it's a country program that's very near and dear to CUSO as well as myself. I think there's perceptions that the Caribbean, including Jamaica, are middle income countries, and they perhaps do not have the same issues of poverty or inequality. But in reality, countries such as Jamaica still face high levels of poverty and unemployment, which we understand that ultimately impacts youth. With the onset of COVID, the poverty rate in Jamaica has increased to 23%. And among youth, that's even higher. It's now 25%. If we take in the context of COVID and that the majority of employment and even business opportunities focus in the tourism sector, with the onset of COVID, many youth have lost their jobs in this sector. So they're now dealing with high employment rates before COVID, but with COVID, they're looking at even higher unemployment rates for youth. And unfortunately, with a lack of jobs, we know that a lot of youth will turn to crime and violence as a very quick way to earn income. When I'm on my visits to Jamaica and we speak with partners, it's great for youth to find jobs, but they have to be trained. It takes longer. So a lot of youth, especially those who live in inner city communities, are turning to joining gangs because they can make money very easily, or they're turning to other types of crime. Another major issue in Jamaica is really looking at teenage pregnancy. So a lot of the work we are doing is specifically with this population among youth, because 18% of births in Jamaica actually are by teenage mothers. And we have to consider that 20% of the population in Jamaica are adolescents. We've also seen in Jamaica with the onset of COVID, that has exacerbated the problem of adolescent pregnancy. We have more young girls leaving schools because schools are closed, they don't have access to technology, and that's causing them to drop out, increase domestic responsibilities, and in many cases, they become teenage mothers. In Honduras, we're also seeing similar impacts of COVID. In around 2019, the poverty rate in Honduras was almost 50%, and almost 15% of Hondurans are living on $2 a day. And in community areas, in rural areas, this is particularly challenging because these people are more vulnerable to natural disasters. We're talking about droughts and hurricanes and floodings. So we know that there's less opportunities for employment and business development. But also we have to consider, and it's also increased with COVID, is that Honduras is considered one of the most violent countries in the world, and women are more at risk. So a lot of the work that we're doing is looking at how can we help young women protect themselves, but also how to recognize, situations of abuse, for example. But yes, Honduras has very high rates of femicide. Some of the statistics point out that a woman is killed every 23 hours average in country. And this is exacerbated more with COVID because in many countries, including Canada, we know that victims were confined with abusers because of lockdown measures. And that was a case in Honduras as well. So for CUSO, considering these country contexts, it's very important that we focus on our interventions with girls and boys and young adolescents so we can help them start to grow up in safer environments, healthy environments, but also that they can start to contribute as leaders in their communities. Thanks, Tina.
Wow. No, thank you, Tandy. Your context really reveals needs in many areas to work with local partners. I heard maternal health come in, ending gender-based violence, and obviously creating economic opportunities. So thank you for that. And I know you're going to get into the programming aspect a little bit more, but let's move to Anna. And Anna, maybe you can share with us the data that's coming out of your countries, as well as the state of affairs for young women and girls, with a focus on Tanzania and Ethiopia. So Anna, you have the floor.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you very much. I think I can echo a lot of the sentiments that Tanya just shared around the constraints that we face within our operational countries in Tanzania and Ethiopia around COVID-19. The loss of economic opportunity, especially in rural areas, with a reduced interest in procuring items, a reduction in travel, a reduction in just the movement of goods across the country, the countries that we're working in, especially these aspects around the rural populations. Because if people aren't coming in, if they're not moving through these rural populations, if they're not purchasing the goods, they're not engaging, and this increases the economic burden. I think also in Ethiopia, and I think we can speak to Tanzania as well, the climate changes are shifting crop rotations. It means that we don't know when to plant anymore. We don't know when it's going to rain. We can't time it by looking at the sky and knowing. And the fact that we don't know when to plant means that the small amount of seeds that we do have access to, we may plant at the wrong time, and then the drought happens and it's not viable. So there's a significant increase in hunger, in malnutrition, in some of these issues. And these issues always hit women and girls and youth more than they hit anyone else in the population, because these are the marginalized groups. These are the groups that don't necessarily have access to what they need or access to economy to purchase what they need. An additional and really significant issue that we've been facing within Ethiopia, and as well a little bit in Tanzania, is conflict. In Tanzania, there have been conflict in the bordering regions with Mozambique, insecurity due to the elections in Burundi, and the ongoing fallout of that over the last couple of years. And then in Ethiopia, we faced the massive crisis around the conflict in Tigray and the rolling effect of that throughout the rest of the country. There's increased levels of ethnic conflict and ethnic insecurity, especially in the region that we are specifically working in, Benishangul Gumuz, where up until recently, we weren't actually able to access some of the schools that we work in because of the security situation, and had to sit and wait until the security situation enabled us to get back into the schools. And we're faced with schools that have been demolished, or schools that have suffered need a lot of repairs as a result. And then the fallout of that means that the young women and girls that we work with and their families are increasingly unsure of sending their girls to school, because what could happen on the road to school. So all of these issues wrapped up are very, very difficult for us to face. In Tanzania, we've mostly focused on employment for women and youth, and women and youth, as I just mentioned, are stuck in a cyclical state of poverty and unemployment with little opportunity for social or economic advancement. It's estimated that over 1 million job seekers enter the Tanzanian labor market annually, mainly the youth between ages of 15 and 35. However, the economy's capacity to create new jobs is less than 40,000 per year in the public sector. Women and youth in Tanzania also have been victims of social stereotypes and cultural barriers, traditions that deny them the right to own property and other physical access, which further constrains their ability to access loans and have collateral for accessing these loans from financial institutions. And overarchingly, there's a lack of a general legal framework to guide and improve the business environment for women and youth in these countries. And it's created unnecessary restrictions on women and youth business entrepreneurs to access financial support due to the fact that they don't have the business schools, they don't have the acumen, and they don't have the collateral to just launch themselves, even when they have an idea. In Ethiopia, as I mentioned, our work is mainly focused on education and supporting girls and young women to finish their secondary schooling and promote access to tertiary education opportunities. And the reason that we've focused on this in Ethiopia is that despite 10.9 million girls currently being enrolled in primary and secondary education, there are still over 1.6 million girls that do not have access to education. 47% of girls who enroll in first grade in Ethiopia are absent from education by fifth grade. And across the country, 75% of secondary school age girls do not attend secondary school at all. So there's a really, really significant need there to promote education for girls and promote parents to engage in supporting girls to access education. We've specifically focused our project and the piloting of this project in the Benishangul Gumuz region of Ethiopia, because in 2005, 19% of the population fell below the lowest classification of standard of living and has remained in this percentile since. And adult literacy rates for men in this area are 47.4% and only 23.2% for women. And these disparities between boys and girls education remain the most significant in Ethiopia. So these are some of the challenges that we're facing and that we're trying to engage in Africa and in Tanzania and Ethiopia at the moment.
Thank you, Anna. It sounds super complex, especially when you're bringing in the aspect of conflict. But really the key takeaway is around employability and definitely education. So thank you. I know you're going to really dive a little bit deeper into the programming aspect and how we're working with local partners. But at this point, I would like to restart the presentation. There's some beautiful images and slides. And Tanya's going to come back and talk a little bit more about the programming aspect. So let me start the presentation.
Great, thank you, Tina. I think I can just comment, one of the things that I appreciate so much about the town hall is it really allows us, our staff, but also we engage our partners in these town halls as well, is really reflecting on the impacts that we have in the communities that we work with. So I'm going to share some specific examples from Jamaica and Honduras that talk to our work with boys and girls and adolescents and what we're doing to help prepare these future leaders in their communities in Jamaica and Honduras. So in Jamaica, it's quite interesting with the onset of COVID, we have been working with the Women's Resource and Outreach Center. They're one of the leading women's organizations in Jamaica. And with the closure of schools across Jamaica, girls and boys are now learning online. However, 50% of children in Jamaica do not have access to online technology, nor do parents understand the online technology if they do have access to it. So CUSO has been working with the center to provide technical training to women to access this technology so that they can develop their digital literacy skills so they are better able to support their children with online learning during COVID. And I thought that was amazing because a lot of times we focus on interventions with youth specifically or children, but one thing in Jamaica and also the Caribbean, part of the core work of working with youth and children in inner city communities is you also need to build the capacity and skills and knowledge of parents. So it's quite interesting. Their model is really they're helping the parents learn digital technology and online learning so that they can better support their kids as they try to navigate digital online learning. So that was very exciting to me. We're also working with Junior Achievement in Jamaica. They've been a long-standing partner of CUSO, and they're working with young girls to prepare them as economic leaders in their communities, but also to empower young women and girls economically. So Junior Achievement has been working to strengthen entrepreneurship programs specifically for children and adolescents. And CUSO has been key in working with Junior Achievement in integrating a national standard curriculum that includes a focus on entrepreneurship and business development with specific focus on young girls and how can we build their knowledge and awareness of financial literacy. It's also helping them become work ready and we're also providing them with skills with entrepreneurship. In the Caribbean, it's quite an entrepreneurial spirit, culture, and I think with lack of employment opportunities, many youth who are very creative are starting to look at things like edutainment, looking at music and art and culture. So a lot of what we're doing is really trying to promote that entrepreneurship spirit. Also, it's creative, but also it's a means of economic generation for youth in Jamaica. Junior Triva is also working with the private sector, who of course is very, very involved in business development. And what they're providing is young girls with practical hands-on experience to develop and pitch their business ideas. So they have these great ideas, they now have the skills, but helping them take it to the next level so they can access financing, they could potentially identify some new investors, for example. But the idea is also to create a network of women entrepreneurs and young women entrepreneurs so that they can create an environment to support future women and young women business leaders. So it's very exciting. And I can say that the majority of our work in Jamaica has historically focused on youth economic development and empowerment in general. In Honduras, as I mentioned previously, there is a strong focus on the prevention of violence and gender-based violence against not only women, but persons living with disabilities, the LGBTQI community. So we've been working very closely with the National Institute of Women, as well as the Center for Women's Rights, who fight tirelessly to promote the rights of women and girls in Honduras. And an exciting project, this probably came out about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, is recognizing the high incidence of abuse against women and young girls and other vulnerable groups. CUSO worked with the National Institute of Women to create an online digital tool, completely anonymous, completely confidential, but women and young women and girls are able to take, it's sort of a test or a questionnaire or a quiz, which helps them evaluate, one, if they could be in a relationship that may become abusive, or they are in an abusive relationship. And because it's completely anonymous, I think women and young women and girls feel more empowered to share their experience. But also part of the tool is linking people who are using this tool to services to help them around the prevention of violence against women and other groups. We're also working, as I mentioned, with the Center for Women's Rights. They do a lot of work on prevention of gender-based violence. They're collecting data and information about the experience of women and young women and girls in Honduras. And they've really been focused on how do we prepare that next generation of young women who are going to become feminist or women leaders in Honduras. So they're doing a lot of work with that next generation of advocates, of campaigners, of young women who really want to continue the fight for prevention of gender-based violence and other types of violence. And we also do a lot of work of promoting sexual health and reproductive rights of young women. So not only is it building leadership and participation, but also help educating about their body, what their rights are, just things about preventing early teenage pregnancy, to give young girls the opportunity to go to school, to find a job, to study further. So it's very exciting, the work in that area. Something else that we're also very passionate about in Honduras, and we've been developing this program probably over the last 4 years, is we've identified in those sort of vulnerable groups, it's really women living with disabilities. And in many cases, the women living with disabilities also have children who are living with disabilities. So we have been working in rural areas of Honduras where there are no employment opportunities, where there's very limited business opportunities. And we've been providing entrepreneurship training to women and other persons living with disabilities who can start micro collective enterprises as a form of income generation. And I think what's really interesting is that the mothers are then sharing this economic empowerment, basic information about their human rights and participation. They're passing it on to their children in many cases, who are young girls and young women, so that they can see this entrepreneurial spirit, but also benefit from the training that their mothers may be experiencing. And finally, I'm going to share a story that is very exciting. I think it's very empowering. Is in Honduras, we identified a value chain for women that's a traditional value chain, which is fishing. And traditionally in Honduras, it's men who participate in fishing. And we started working with the Center of Marine Studies, who identified the appetite of women and young women in rural communities who are interested in fishing. One, it provides food for their family, it increases food security, but also it provides opportunities for small businesses. So if you can catch fish, sell it within your community. And so it's really been interesting because as it is a male-dominated activity, we have been empowering local women, including young women and girls, so that they start learning the techniques of repairing the fishing nets, the different types of fishing techniques. And it's not even helping themselves, but it's also helping their communities at large. So that has been really exciting for us, that we've started to work with fisher folk, which includes both men and women, people who are fishing, but also we're seeing that it started to transfer to younger generations as a means of income generation and providing for their families. So thank you, Tina. It's always exciting to be able to share the impacts on the ground.
Oh, thank you, Tandy. I think some of the elements that stood out for me in what you were describing is really around leadership and that change, but really that leadership piece, whether it be from many different diverse backgrounds of working with, young people with disabilities or the LGBTQI plus community, and vulnerable groups, whether it be in Jamaica or Honduras. So thank you for sharing some insights. And now just to kind of develop a little bit more of the story around the value chains and fisher folk, I would like to present a video. It's in their native language of Spanish with English subtitles. So thank you. I'll play that.
Lourdes Yamilet Salinas, soy de Omoa Cabecera y me dedico a la pesca. Soy mujer pescadora. De ver en este evento, las mujeres somos pescadoras, ¿verdad? Y en este momento estamos empezando de que se nos empiece a tomar en cuenta. Las mujeres somos pescadoras también, somos parte de llevar el sustento al hogar también, no solo los hombres. Pescando para la vida y queremos resaltar que debemos hacer una pesca responsable, una captura de peces con un tamaño adecuado. Entonces, pescando para la vida nos viene a enseñar a cuidar para que tengamos en un futuro. Como dice, pescando para la vida, no para el momento. Queremos que nuestros nietos, que nuestros bisnietos conozcan también los pescados. En línea de mano, nosotros podemos medir el tamaño de la captura de que nosotros vamos a sacar y vamos a comercializar o vamos a llevar a nuestras casas para alimento. Podemos tomar en cuenta que si capturamos un pez pequeño, entonces hay que devolverlo al mar. Entonces la pesca de línea nos ayuda en eso, es una pesca más responsable. Entonces los usamos todos los pescadores, porque todos los que pescamos en la zona, todos usamos redes. Lo único que la red hay que usarla con la malla adecuada, malla de 3 en adelante, porque la malla de 3 no te captura especie pequeña, te captura un tamaño adecuado para que lo podamos comercializar. Deseo de una mejor vida a nuestros hijos, a nuestra familia. Ese es un sueño que todo pescador tiene.
So I really hope you enjoyed that video, and it really brought some content home of the impact that's being done from a value chains perspective and really driven by community members. So thank you again, Tanya. I just wanted to share a quote that I thought was so appropriate that I'm sure is familiar. If you give a woman to fish, you feed her for a day. If you teach a woman to fish, you feed her, her family, and her community for a lifetime. And that's a quote from our country representative in Honduras, Karen Pavon. So I just thought that was super fitting. And now wanting to bring Anna back. I know, Anna, what I took away in some of your contextual situational background in Tanzania, especially around those 1 million job seekers that are going into the labor market annually. If you can share the work that's being done to kind of combat this and solve some of those problems, as well as speak to education, which you did in Ethiopia. But why are girls calling our program life-changing? So Anna, you have the floor. Maybe you can start with Tanzania.
Thanks very much, Tina. So we have been working in Tanzania on economic empowerment for quite a few years recently, in quite a few years now. And we've developed a lot of really amazing partnerships, and we've been working with different groups to support women, to support youth in developing their own opportunities, empowering themselves to start entrepreneurship projects and then to grow those projects. Because we work in mostly rural areas, a lot of these projects have been focused around crops growing and farming. And one of the biggest challenges that exists within farming is value chain. And how do we ensure that we're growing really good products and products that are environmentally sensitive, that are taking into account the environmental changes that we're facing, and doing this in a responsible way. And in doing that, you create a really great product, but then what do you do with that product, right? So a lot of the projects that we've been working on have been how to bring these products to a market, how to support farmers and especially marginalized groups like women and youth to access these markets, get a fair price, and be able to ensure that they can provide for these markets once they've been established and provide to a really high quality. So as a result of this work, we have worked with Sugeko, who focuses on supporting women and youth economic empowerment in Tanzania. And in March of this year, Sokoine University Graduate Entrepreneurship Cooperative, so this is Sugeko, with the support of CUSO International, officially launched the newly developed agricultural investment approach, which is named Kizimbo Business Model. So I'll be referring to it as KBM, just because Kizimbo Business Model is a mouthful. So this model works to address key challenges facing women and youth entrepreneurs and includes, but is not limited to, employment opportunities, development of marketing skills for agricultural produce, addressing productivity, sourcing finance and sourcing investment, and creating a value chain. So helping them establish a market for the products. The Kizimbo business model was designed to facilitate strong public-private partnerships, as I mentioned, for resource mobilization and youth engagement in agriculture, developing skills and ensuring employability. Under this model, and the way that we work within this model, is a block of land is developed with all necessary infrastructure and requisite facilities and is divided into smaller parcels or plots that are economically viable units that we've called Kizimbo. These plots are operated by being leased or transferred to individual youth or female farmers, women farmers, through specific terms and conditions that they have to meet in order to be able to continue to work these plots of land. And to start the undertaking, a mapping of 1,500 acres was conducted, and this land was allocated to 480 women and youth for development and subsequent farming. So to ensure the success of this model, establishing the farmers, providing the plots, providing the education and the support that they need, KBM also has supported the establishment of supply chain through the signing of contracts with buyers for production. There's also been a signed commitment of the suppliers of the seeds or whatever it is that they need. This is so the specific industrial products which are required. So seedlings, like the main crops that we're dealing with right now are habanero chili, sunflower seeds, and maize, ensuring that there's a level of consistency in the input to the farming and ensuring that the demand has been met so the output is equally strong. Further, the KBM model has been able to secure the commitment of financial services providers for operating capital support for the growers. So enabling them to have that first output, to buy the seeds so that they can start planting, to buy the fertilizers and that type of thing that they need to be able to continue the farming and to have a good product. Which then obviously, once they've sold at market, they can repay these loans and either grow their crops or continue to maintain. And the success of this approach is underlined by its adoption now by the Ministry of Agriculture and the government of Tanzania. And recently it was applauded by the minister in a speech. So we're really proud of this, this approach, and we're really, really happy that it's going to be scaled up. And while this project has had much success to date, the challenges of farm production, infrastructure, uniform quality of produce, reliable supply, and producer power for price negotiation, and then of course, continued refinancing, continue to be a challenge. As this model grows, as this model becomes used and perhaps becomes part of a structure, then ideally, it will then establish and replicate itself. And some of these challenges that we're facing will be overcome. And ideally, there will be increased levels of competitiveness within the field. There will be increased opportunities for women and youth to access and to continue to move forward. I'd also like to talk a little bit more about our work in Ethiopia. And I'm actually in Addis right now, just having participated over the last couple of days in the kit distribution for the second year of school support for this project. It's called You Girls Too, and it's supported by Global Affairs Canada. And we're really excited about it because we're heading into our second year. Well, we're in the midst of our second year right now. And we've faced a lot of challenges in this project because most of the schools were shut down up until the end of the last school year. So there was a very truncated school year last year. I think that from January to July when they ended for that term, which meant that we haven't moved as far and as much as we'd wanted to with this project. But what's really amazing is that we're already seeing results, and we're already seeing this really amazing engagement by the girls and by their families in the project. And the project really takes a holistic approach to education. And we want the girls to be there, but we also want their parents to be there. We want to build the capacity and the understanding of the parents of the importance of education, and how even if the girls aren't in school, even if the girls are in school, then there are also opportunities for the parents. So we've done not just education and scholarships for the girls so that they can go to school and attend school, but we're developing mentorship programs that will support the girls and their families. And we're also developing an attached entrepreneurship program, which will support the families to have the income that they need, which maybe the girls were providing if they weren't in school. So it's a really holistic approach to promoting education, to promoting families and promoting girls within their own communities. So I'd like to share a couple of stories with you. I had a really interesting chance through this distribution to speak with not just the girls, but with their families. I also spoke with the Regional Bureau for Education, and we talked with the schools themselves and the principals about the project and their investment in the project. And we're really happy at the level of investment and the level of enthusiasm for continuing this project. So the first photos that you see there is a lovely young woman named Girisa. So she, despite heavy rain, you can see that there's an umbrella there. She walked a number of kilometers, over an hour, to come and collect her school kit. She's in grade 12 and actually had just dislocated her shoulder a couple of days before, working in the field with her father, who's also in that picture. She's the eldest of 8 children and has a duty of care for her younger siblings. She walked with her father, who is actually a diabetic as well, over an hour to come and collect her school belongings. When asked, the father said that he came with her because he wanted to have her to have this chance to learn and have future opportunities. And he was worried that she wouldn't be able to carry the supplies home. So he accompanied her to ensure that she was okay. You can already see that the parents are invested. The parents want to see their daughters succeed, and they're there and they're attending the events with their children. Another recipient of the scholarship, here pictured here, is Zudi Adenum. She's a mother of 5, actually, and early marriage, which is a significant problem in the Asosa region. She was married at 13, and as a result had to leave school to go to the home of her husband. So she's here because she successfully lobbied her husband to come back to school and will be taking her leaving exam this year. So she's in grade 12, and she'll hopefully graduate. This case is for us is a really special one because we hope that she'll act as a positive role model for other girls and their families that are participating in the program, demonstrating the importance of education and the will and the motivation to have an education, and the importance of asserting yourself and being a role model as a mother and a woman, not only for your own education, but ideally modeling for your daughters and for other girls into the future. So we also had a chance to talk to Fatuma Abebe, who we've actually been following from the beginning of the project. Yesterday, she received her kit for her final year at Asosa Secondary Preparatory School, and Fatuma wants to be a doctor. She's the youngest child in her family and has 3 siblings, including 2 sisters. And Fatuma lives with her mother, who's visually impaired and does not have a permanent means of income. So they really rely on the kindness of individuals from around their mosque. Due to the stresses that Fatuma faces within her family home, her academic performance has been quite poor in the past. Her academic record, so that she scored an average of 52% over the previous 3 grades. In terms of these factors which contribute to her poor performance, Fatuma said that with her mother being sick often nowadays, she couldn't attend class regularly or attentively because she would often leave her mother at the mosque and then come to school. And so she couldn't focus because she was worried that something might happen to her mother before she returned from class. Moreover, when she comes home, she bears the responsibility for all of the household tasks, and there's no one in her family that is supporting with her in her studies. So as a result, her performance hasn't been that great. We're hoping that this is going to change through the scholarship program, through the Euro Girls 2 project. Fatuma in the last year has been able to participate in leadership training and in reproductive health education, and has been able to access tutoring and scholastic support. Yesterday, when she received her kit, she was laughing and smiling with her schoolmates. And we hope that this is going to continue and that we will see a significant improvement in her her performance in the next year. I'm really excited to see what happens at their graduation, which will be next July. And I do hope that I will be able to participate. So these stories that I've shared today really underline the holistic approach that we're taking, not only in Ethiopia, but also in Tanzania, looking at girls' education, looking at education holistically, looking at entrepreneurship holistically, and what do we need to do to make sure that women and youth and marginalized groups have access to their needs and have access to obtain their dreams and have a brighter future.
Thank you, Anna. I so wish that I was in Ethiopia with you. You know, what's really standing out is that partnerships, but having the communities be the drivers of change. And like you, where will they be in 5 years? I really can't wait to see how, you know, they change their communities and are the drivers of change for their communities. So with that, and looking at the time, I think we're making some good time. For those of you who've joined us just after I started, I did say that I have a special announcement towards the end. So we're coming up on the Q&A session right now. And I would like to once again stop the presentation, go to the Q&A board. This is an opportunity for Anna, if you can open your camera, please use the Q&A as it facilitates just some of the technical aspects for us to be able to review. So in the meantime, as you're thinking of your questions and typing them in, I'm going to do a second poll. There you go. Program approaches to advancing the next generation of leaders. So you've heard a lot of what Tanya said, as well as what Anna said, around some of the approaches that CUSO is taking and how we're definitely looking through a lens of partnership programming. So leave this up for another couple of seconds while people are typing in their questions in the Q&A portion, and we'll stop the camera, stop the presentation, get Anna and Tandy on screen for you to ask your questions. So just momentarily. When it comes to advancing the next generation of leaders, what is our approach?
Okay,
So I think,
would you like me to start, Tina?
No, I'm just sharing the results, Tandy, and then I'm going to, I haven't opened them up yet, but these are the results of what the community online has just responded and how you've engaged. So definitely all of the above. And thank you for listening. It's wonderful. So Tanya, I'm just going to get to the questions right now. So just give me 2 seconds, everyone. There and there. I see a lot of chats happening. I'm hoping that there's some good conversations going on. Okay. So this is probably for Anna. It's around our level of support. I wish to know what is the level and willingness of support of CUSO within the continent of Africa and the different stakeholders and partners during COVID-19. So I think they're trying to better understand how our involvement has been within the continent during the period of COVID-19. And I'm not sure if I'm putting you on the spot, but if you have any context to lend to that question.
Yeah, I feel a little on the spot. But
maybe I'll ask, sorry,
I think
there is, sorry,
no,
Anna,
can,
there's, no, it's just, there's a little bit of a delay technically on your end. And I know you're an Addis and I know sometimes, perfect. Thank you for turning off your camera. It'll help. So go ahead with your response.
Is this better?
It is.
Can you hear me okay? Okay. So we are working in 6 countries in Africa right now. We're in Benin, in Nigeria and Cameroon, in the DRC, in Ethiopia, and in Tanzania. We work through the SHARE program, which is our big volunteer program, which we all are participating in, as well as some bilateral programming. And these, and so all of our programs have a lot of partners. As you know, most of our volunteers have worked through partner organizations to reinforce capacity and build technical ability with within these CSOs and within these partners. We're working with government, we're working with civil society, we're working increasingly to access private enterprise, to promote entrepreneurship and employment opportunities. And we're hoping that this is just going to continue. You know, I think that COVID's been really, really difficult across the board, and especially for certain programs, because we weren't able to travel, we weren't able to get partners into the countries. We've looked at a lot of different options. We have online partnerships that are happening now, and online support that's happening through volunteers, south to south volunteers that are coming in. And we're hoping, you know, that going forward, as we, this is going to sound terrible, but as we get more comfortable, or we start to understand what COVID-19 and the effects of COVID-19 and how we mitigate COVID-19, we'll be able to increase that engagement again. We also have a lot of bilateral programming in our countries, and that type of programming, because it's in country with our country program offices, has really continued to support partners and continue to go forward. So it's, you know, we're really in a period where we're in a balancing act of trying to ensure that we're meeting all of the needs.
Thank you, Anna, for that. And there was a question around being recorded. Yes, we are recording. If you can't stay to the end for the surprise announcement or special announcement, that's okay. It is being recorded and we'll be sharing that with you. There's a question from Maggie. Hi, Maggie. It's for Tanya. You spoke about the online digital tools for self-assessment, abusive relationships available online in Honduras. I would like to share with our local partners in Honduras.
Sure.
So if I'm not sure how those are available. Sure. Or how, okay.
Sure. So I actually, while Anna was speaking, I was multitasking. I apologize. I actually just put the link for the Violentrometro. It's very hard to pronounce. So if that link doesn't work, please reach out to Tina and I can find, I believe it's also you can download it as an app. But I did a quick search online and you can put that in, and there's a number of articles that come up, but please, that link hopefully will work for you.
Thank you, Tandy, for that. And yes, open invitation. Love to have your engagement. There is a comment question. Thank you for supporting us for so long, Heather. 30-year supporter of CUSO. We always appreciate the feedback and engagement. Very interested in violence prevention, training, and education for women at risk and their children. They would love to connect with us and offer any assistance with global connections to leaders, women, and their allies, designing and delivering successful practices in violence prevention education to the marginalized and at-risk populations, including children and youth in Israel, the USA, Albania, Europe, and Africa. So I think what that comment question is around kind of making some alignment and synergy with long-time stakeholders with CUSO. So thank you, Heather. Sorry, it's hard to. Thank you, Chijoke. Great job on the work and supporting education in Ethiopia. So back to Anna. I have managed informal educational projects of OOS. I'm not sure what that acronym is for, of girls in Nigeria myself. And one of the challenges noted was the frequent need to replenish TML's material given to the beneficiaries, like the bags mentioned here. Do you encounter such challenges? If yes, how have you been managing them? So maybe there's a little bit of technical programming language there that Anna can support me on.
I can't.
Oh, okay,
OS
okay.
Girls and TLMs is this, no, I don't know, maybe you can just put in TLMs at the bottom so that we know what that means, and then I can answer the question for you.
Okay, that's okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. They're obviously in an international development circle, sector circle. There's also a question around the aspects of activities proved less fruitful. So we've talked a lot about some of the successes and value chains and wins, I guess, but this is a question around maybe some of the gaps that still need to be worked on and aspects of activities that we have found a little bit more of a challenge or less fruitful. I don't know who wants to take that one.
I mean, I think there's always gaps and there's always more we could be doing. I think what we've seen in Honduras, specifically working with vulnerable groups such as persons living with disabilities, I think there is a gap or a need for more education information on making people aware of their basic human rights. That's what we're starting to come to see out of our work. And that's not just for entrepreneurship training or employment or education. I think basic human rights, it's in the labor sector, it's in the education sector, it's in the finance sector. So that's what we're seeing specifically in Honduras is, and even in Peru, we're doing a project, Women's Voice and Leadership, that really looks at women's rights and participation. And it's knowing your basic human rights and how do you exercise those rights, and knowing that then you can access different services and programs. So a lot of the work we're doing is the recognition of basic human rights, and then how do we help vulnerable groups exercise those basic human rights, which will empower them in a number of different areas.
Thank you. And this is a loaded question because I participate in some of the reporting and meal aspects. But Richard, thank you for the question. It's around what are our approaches to measuring our programs or projects performance? Do we have a methodology, and in doing so, do you use KPIs? So I know the answer is yes, 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 but maybe both of you can I know we can get into this for the next hour on KPIs and reporting, but maybe you can give some top line measurements and methodologies that we use.
Yeah, I'll just give one specific example of a very large bilateral project that we're implementing in Colombia. And what we are using is a digital online tool that allows us to capture data and information in real time. So we can equip our territorial coordinators or staff members that are going into the communities and working directly with the youth or women or victims of the conflict, and now Venezuelan migrants that we're working with, and they're able to capture the data in real time. And what it allows us to do is analyze the data and course correct. And the reason we do this, because a lot of the work we do is around training so that people can access jobs as well as business opportunities. But we found if we're better tracking the data and results and information, we can help lower desertion rates. We can help increase retention rates. So that's something that we've been doing in our bilateral projects, is how do we better capture information so that we can course correct or better support the people we're working with so they're more successful in the activities.
Thank you. Anna, did you want to add around methodologies of capturing KPIs or methodologies of reporting, that sort of thing. I know it's not as sexy or like a fun topic, but we all have to do it.
It's a super sexy topic. Monitoring evaluation is like the heart of it. I think Tanya has really spoken to some of the more quantitative tools that we employ in most of our bilateral programming. We are using these online tools, tablets, to collect information, to collect data for quantitative measurements. And I think that this is really important. And one of my joys is matching that with stories, which you've actually gotten to hear a lot of today. And one of the tools that we've used in the past, and I hope we will continue to use, is outcome harvesting. And that's going in and understanding the impact and understanding the qualitative impact and being able to measure the qualitative impact in a way, right? So we understand an activity, we understand the impact of that activity, and then we follow that activity and we follow the individuals who have participated in that activity to understand the impact of those activities on them. And I think that this is a really great way for us to be able to share with you the stories and the impact and the change that the communities that we've engaged with have experienced. The data, it's important, it's good. We can see, we can very quickly pop out information, but it's the stories that really resonate, right? It's what makes us keep coming back to volunteering or coming back to aid or coming back to the work that we do. So it's a great balance, the KPI measurement and then matching it with something that's more qualitative.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. These are people. So I know, putting numbers on spreadsheets isn't always the right opportunity. So it's the stories that really resonate. And you've done a fabulous job with doing that today. So thank you. And looking at the time, I do have a special announcement to make. I want to thank you all. Thank you for being part of our collective dream for the next generation of young leaders, women and girls. I will just put the presentation back on because it'll help me support the special announcement. There we go. At this point, I always like to offer speakers, any final thoughts, closing remarks. What is it you would like our global audience, it's not just across Canada, but global audience to kind of leave with today from some of the work that you're doing in country? So I would start with you, Tanya, because you have your camera on.
So I think what I've come away with these last, 7, 8 years as head of programs is really how skill building and building the knowledge capacity of people can change a life. And I'm going to give you one quick example. I know I only have 30 seconds. We were on a visit to Nicaragua where we were working with a women's organization that is providing skills and training to women. And we asked the woman, what is the biggest impact that you've had participating in this training? And she said, when I first started the program, I could only sign my name with my thumbprint. At the end of the program, I could write my full name. That to me changed. It changed me. It changed everybody in the room. But just a simple thing like teaching literacy and writing, like that blew my mind. So I think really investing in people and knowledge and skill building is going to help prepare future generations.
100%. I know that I've heard that comment, that story, and it always takes my breath away. Anna, over to you. Is there anything you'd like to leave with our Canadian? I know as we all kind of wipe our eyes, taking things for granted, right? Like to your point. So Anna, over to you. Sorry.
As you all know, I just joined CUSO. I've only been here for 2 months, but CUSO is something that's in my blood. I mean, I've been on CUSO. I've been, 11 months was my first engagement with CUSO. I was a CUSO volunteer, and I just keep coming back to the impact, what and the stories that Tanya shared around the change that we get to see when we work and the change that our volunteers impact and the really wonderful response that we get when we go to the communities and we say, oh, well, we're from CUSO International. And they say, oh, I remember when this person was here and this person did this and this and this. And these are the stories, it's not just the stories of the impact that we've had on the community members, but it's their stories of the impact of CUSO on them that's so beautiful. The stories of the engagements that they've had with Canadian volunteers or CUSO staff, which is really, really lovely, and the value of those relationships that we build. And that's why I came back to CUSO, because I value relationships and I value those community moments. So
Thank
thanks
you,
for
Anna.
having me.
We're welcome back and as a staffer. And just looking at the time, I do want to thank you all. Thank you for your commitment to creating a safer, sustainable, and fair world, especially for women and girls. We can't do this work without you, and we do invite you to support us and consider making a donation today. Now for the special announcement. We are super excited to be sending volunteers out to country again. This is news because for the past 20 months, we've all been living in this pandemic mode. But I must say and emphasize that CUSO has been working very hard, and we've been having the support of national as well as South-South volunteers. Their help has been invaluable to continue our programming, and we thank them very much. We will be following all protocols for safety and security, and it's really gratifying to be able to be to this stage where we're returning to send Canadian volunteers. In fact, one of our alum will be heading out to Cameroon in a couple of weeks, so I believe that's the start of November. We have selected Benin as one of our initial countries that will receive volunteers from Canada. So if you're interested in re-volunteering with us, we welcome you. I do want to stress as well, manage expectations, that these are very limited number of placements available for the time being, as you can understand. And so if you're interested, I would jump on this opportunity. Please contact, you see our manager's name below, Brian Glavine at cusointernational.org, or you can visit our website. And so once again, in closing, thank you for celebrating International Day of the Girl with us. For the questions we didn't get to, I know there's some, but there's a lot probably in the chat that didn't make its way to the Q&A. Know that it's part of our approach and our model to respond to everyone. So we will be getting responses to you via email. You'll also be receiving a short survey. We always appreciate your feedback. It's another way for you to engage with us. You'll also be receiving a recording of the town hall. I know those were some of the questions that were being asked. And we would offer, and please feel free to share it if there's content that you really enjoyed around the storytelling today. So thank you for your service. Thank you for your support to CUSO International. In solidarity, bye for now.